Hello, and thanks for joining us. On behalf of the Environmental Finance Center Network, I'd like to welcome you to our Florida Water and Wastewater Rates Dashboard webinar. My name is Tess Clark. I work here at the Syracuse University Environmental Finance Center. And before we get started with our program, I'm going to quickly go over some logistics and just talk a little bit about our network and our Smart Management for Small Water Systems project. Everyone joining us today, you can see that we have mostly Florida folks since we are focusing on Florida. The content will be definitely applicable to others though. And here's some information about our network, the Environmental Finance Center Network. This session is just one of multiple webinars that we conduct for the Smart Management for Small Water Systems project. The Environmental Finance Center Network provides training and technical assistance to small public water systems in all 50 states and 5 territories to help local systems achieve and maintain compliance with the Safe Drinking Water Act. Okay, and here you can take a look at our small systems team. We have 10 partners and centers that extend across the U.S. that you can all see here. Right, and here you can see our areas of expertise. So you can see that we provide workshops, trainings, and direct technical assistance on all of the topics you can see here, and that includes asset management, rate setting, fiscal planning, water loss reduction, and also dashboards like we're doing today. The EFCN also has a small systems blog. You can learn more about water finance and management through this blog, and our blog posts feature lessons learned from our trainings and technical assistance, also descriptions of available tools and small system success stories. At the end of the webinar, we will give you the opportunity to subscribe to this blog, just through a quick poll question. And one last resource that I want to point out to you before we really get going is our online funding sources map. This is a tool that can help you find the major funding sources for drinking water in your state or territory. This is how you access those tables. On the EFCN homepage, like you can see on the slide, you go to the Resources tab and then you click on Funding Sources by State. This will take you to a map of the country. If you click on the state that you're interested in, you will find a PDF table on of the relevant funding sources for drinking water for that state. And you can sort of see on the slide here, it looks like this table that's on the left of the slide. And for each funding program, that's going to include the name of the program, a short description, and a contact for someone who works at the program that you can use that information to contact them. Before I turn our presentation over to our expert for today, I have 2 quick polling questions just to get the ball rolling. So I'm going to show those now. So the first question is, what kind of water or sewer utility do you represent? And just select one of the following: a for-profit water system, local government, not-for-profit, other water systems such as an authority, district, or school, or not a water system. Okay, so looks like almost everyone has put their response in, so I'm going to close this poll in 3, 2, and 1. And I'm sharing the results so we can sort of see where everyone's coming from. It looks like the majority of people today are not water systems. We do have 25% of authorities, districts, or schools, some local government, 19%, and 13% not-for-profit. All right, and secondly, if we could quickly just respond here, what size water and/or sewer system does your utility operate by number of people served? So you can choose from very small, 500 or fewer people, small, 501 to 3,300, medium, large or very large, or not a water system. And since we do have some folks that are not water systems today, I expect we might see a couple people who are not water systems. Okay, great. So of the folks that are water systems, it looks like 26% are actually 10,000 or more. And we do have 11% that are 501 to 3,300 people, which are small systems. Okay, great. So at this point, I'm going to turn our presentation over to our expert, Annalee Harkins. Annalee is Data Specialist and Project Manager at the Environmental Finance Center at the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill.
Okay, now for real this time with audio. So, as I said, I'm Annalee Harkins. I'm the Data Specialist and Project Manager here at the Environmental Finance Center, based at UNC Chapel Hill School of Government. And my role here at the center is to manage all of our statewide rate surveys and dashboards, which, as you can see here in this map, we have 18 and counting. This is our first dashboard for the state of Florida, and we're hoping that we can continue to update it with new rates information as the years go on. But this rates dashboard is for rates that are current as of 2018. Okay, and then our two objectives that we have for this webinar are to become familiar with the features and benefits of the dashboard and to learn how to use it to compare water systems and wastewater systems meaningfully with other systems. Okay, so first of all, I'd like to talk about where the data came from. Raftellus Financial Consultants, they've been actually producing a rate survey in the state since 2012. And this year, they worked with the University of Florida to collect rates information, and then they partnered with us to produce the interactive rates dashboard. There's also a report that they put together, which you can get to from either searching their website, or there's also a link on our dashboard page, which has some more findings about the survey and the survey group. In addition to the rates information that was collected by Raftellus and the University of Florida, this dashboard also uses data from the United States Census Bureau, from the latest 5-year estimate from the American Community Survey, the HUC-6 watershed information from the U.S. Geological Survey, system characteristics provided by the EPA's Safe Drinking Water Information System, and financial records from the Florida State Auditor. Okay, and then briefly looking at who is actually in this survey group that's represented on the dashboard, we have 219 represented utilities, which serve over 1.7 million people. The majority are municipalities, and then after that we have some counties and districts, and then a few authorities, not-for-profits, and one for-profit utility. And all of these utilities serve about 85% of the people that are served by community water systems in the state. And that also represents all 5 of the state water management districts. Okay, so if you're unfamiliar with the dashboard, which you may be because this is the first one for Florida, we're just going to go over kind of the anatomy, what everything means, and then use some of the features. So the first thing that you'll notice is that there's this drop down here at the top, and that's where you can select your utility's name. If you start typing into the search box, all of the utilities with, the matching letters will appear as well, just to make it easier so you don't have to scroll forever. There are also 3 example utilities that are at the top when you select the drop-down menu, and that shows just kind of an average utility, a utility that has low operating revenues and low rates, and then also a utility with affordability issues, just to use as examples. The next part of the dashboard in the upper right here is where you can select your desired consumption amount. And this goes from 0 gallons all the way up to 15,000 gallons at 500-gallon increments. You can also select your service type, so whether you're looking at just the water bill, the sewer bill, or the water and sewer bill combined. It shows you the bill amount, and also if you're using cubic feet instead of gallons, it shows the amount in cubic feet right there as well. For all of these rates data, they're all standardized to thousands of gallons and monthly billing period. The next part of the dashboard, right below the consumption slider, is this map. And this is showing where all the utilities that are in the survey are located. It also tells you how many rate structures are in the comparison group, which right now is selected as all utilities in the state. And when you use this comparison group, which we'll get into in a bit, it will kind of narrow down where all the utilities are. The next part, which is kind of the main part of the dashboard, on the right here is where all the dials are. So we have bill comparison, conservation signal, cost recovery, and median affordability. These top 2, bill comparison and conservation signal, compare the selected utility to your peer group, which is over here again, right above the map, which right now is all utilities. So we have many different comparison groups for you to choose from so that you can actually get a meaningful comparison instead of just looking at maybe the towns that are nearby. So you can compare based on the size of the utility, if you're using the same kind of rate structure, whether you're in the same watershed or geographic area, the demographics of your customer base, and also system characteristics and financials. So looking at the bill comparison dial here in the upper left of this right section, we're going to start out with this middle green band, which is the median. This is means that half of the utilities in your peer group have bills that fall within this range, which is from the 25th percentile to the 75th percentile. It's a good place to be. Next, we have the two lighter green bands that are on the side of this middle green area. And this is the next 15% in the peer group that are lower than this middle. So this 15% here on the left have bills that are slightly lower than the median. They're between the 10th percentile and the 25th percentile. And then on the right over here, we have utilities with bills that are a little bit higher than the median, between the 75th and the 90th percentile. If you're using all of the green section here, that's 80% of the utilities. So definitely you want to fall within that range to be among your peer group. Lastly, the yellow sections, which are down here at the bottom on the left and the right, those show the lowest 10% and the highest 10%. So it's kind of the range that you want to avoid because either you are maybe greatly undercharging for your services or you're charging a lot that may cause affordability issues for your customers. Okay, the next dial we're going to look at is the conservation signal right next to bill comparison. And what we mean by conservation signal is that you're sending a pricing signal to your customers to either encourage or discourage certain behavior. So in this case, you're trying to encourage customers to conserve water. So after 10,000 gallons, you're looking at the price of the next 1,000 gallons. We use 10,000 gallons because it's a kind of high consumption amount, especially if you're just kind of an average household. Of course, if you have other circumstances like you're a large household or you do a lot of irrigation, you may have reasons for being in that high consumption range. But generally, we use that as a point of saying this is beyond the normal kind of non-discretionary use of water. And in this example here, these colors are quartiles. So this utility would have a price per 1,000 gallons after 10,000 gallons that is within this range of the 50th to 75th percentile. Okay, next, in this lower section of the dials, these two compare to benchmarks. So it's not comparing to that utility group, it's just the utility against benchmarks. First, we're going to look at cost recovery, which is, beneath bill comparison for a reason, because obviously they are connected. So this first section here from 0 to 1 is red because, well, it means you are in the red if you are in that section. That means that your costs are exceeding your revenues, and so it's definitely a concern for financial sustainability. At this point, you're not able to, save for future capital infrastructure projects, or maybe even pay your debt service. You're just trying to get by day to day. This next section, this little yellow bit between 1 and 1.2, means that your revenues are sufficient to cover costs, but they could be problematic in the long term. You still want to have a little bit extra to be able to save or for emergencies and that kind of thing. I also want to mention that the cost recovery dial here on the front of the dashboard includes depreciation because we want to be able to show that you are accounting for the eventual replacement of equipment and infrastructure. This green band, which is the widest here, means that your revenues are pretty good. They're enough to pay for day-to-day costs. They're also enough to save for different long-term goals and infrastructure projects. And so that's, a good place to be. We do have this little last yellow section here on the right. And that's, in there because we want to make sure that you're not, creating affordability issues for your community, or there's something, suspicious going on, or maybe the data is just incorrect. So it kind of just raises a flag to make sure everything's working as it should there. Okay, the next section is median affordability. This dial, which you can see here, is shades of orange. So if you're on the lighter end, that means you're not using, or it's a low percentage of annual MHI spent on water and wastewater bills. And by MHI, we mean median household income. This is, kind of a controversial topic in some ways. There are many ways to measure affordability, and there's no universal metric that addresses every single facet or cause that may be important to your community. So, take that with a grain of salt. It's definitely worth looking more into, which is why we have these question mark little ovals here to the right of every dial. And here for median affordability, you can see that we go into the data. So we show how much the annual bills would be. That's for the selected consumption amount, times 12 over the course of the year. And then the annual median household income for your community. If you have a really large service area that spans a large part of the state, for example, you won't necessarily be matched to a community that has an MHI. However, you can change that, which I'll show you in a little bit. So we also explain, that this isn't kind of a one and done number. It does involve some more careful consideration. And so we also include a link here to our residential rates affordability assessment tool, so you can get a more in-depth look about how your water and wastewater bills may be affecting your community across different income brackets. And we also have another informational blog post about the percent MHI indicator. And like I said, these little blue question mark ovals to the right of every dial have a lot more information and also the data behind the dial. So if you're ever confused about what something means, it's a good idea to click one of those. Okay, so we've covered the main tab of the rates dashboard. However, there are two other tabs. So here, the second tab here is characteristics, and this has some additional information about the utility and its community. So we have some system characteristics, again from CIDWIS, such as the number of connections and the service population. We have some financial information about revenue, expenses, and assets, and then some demographic information from the census. So household size, median household income, and poverty rate. And you can see here in this middle column, it says median for all utilities in the survey. And that's because all utilities is selected here as the comparison group. So if you were to change your comparison group, all of these numbers would change. And also, if you change your service type, those numbers will change. This rightmost column, statewide stats, is there just kind of for reference. So it has the statewide numbers for average household size, median household income, and poverty rate. Okay, the last tab, links, has additional resources for utilities and decision makers for utilities. So we have some that are state specific, such as the Florida State Revolving Fund and Systems Capacity Development Program. We also have links for requesting small direct assistance for small systems, which of course this project is. We have a link to our survey partner, Raptellus, and additional tools that you can use. So these are all Excel-based tools for the most part. So again, looking into affordability, whether you want to try to figure out how to fund your capital improvement plan, see how you're doing financially across different metrics, or just look at your rates and see how they might be affected if you, increase them or decrease them over time. Okay, now we're going to take a look at the live dashboard and see some of the more interactive features. All right, so here we are on our EFC website, efc.sog.unc.edu, and I got here by going to Resources, Utility, Financial, and Sustainability Rates Dashboard, and then clicking on Florida on the map. So here's the dashboard. You can see here there's a little bit of instructions. All right, so some of the more interesting things that you can use besides just, seeing how you're doing financially and in terms of, comparing to your peers, is you can also use this tool here at the bottom below the map to see what would happen if you were to raise your rates. So this goes all the way up to, I believe, 150%, which is pretty extreme. And it is, not the finest, grained tool. It is a little bit blunt, but we have accounted for decreases in demand for every 10% price increase. So we see if you raise the rates, let's say by 40%, you can see where your old line was, which was, right at, I think it was 1.17. Your cost recovery would jump up to 1.45, which is, a good place to be. You look over here at affordability, you can see that it actually didn't affect affordability that much. It's still right here in a very low zone, which is great, which means, the middle 50% of your community would likely be able to afford this kind of rate increase. Looking at the bill comparison, we jumped from, this section of being between the 10th and 25th percentile up to being in the median, that wide green section there. And then the conservation signal has also increased in strength. So for users that are consuming large amounts of water, they would be more encouraged to use less after, a high consumption point. So that's something here there. We also have, another link to the water and wastewater rates analysis tool, which of course is free. Go back to 0 here. All right. I want to point out some of the comparison groups here. You'll see that some of them are kind of in this lighter gray color that you can't click on. And that means that there aren't enough utilities within that peer group to make a meaningful comparison. So there's just not enough in there. So for here, let's look at same water source type. And of course, that's by groundwater, surface water, and purchased water systems. We don't differentiate between groundwater purchased or surface water purchased, because either way, you're going to be purchasing the water, which is more expensive, and you're probably going to have to pass on some of that cost to your consumers. So here, the number of dots on the map has decreased. We're now at 158 rate structures compared. And, that also changes where the medians change, or the medians are, where the, lower and higher ranges are, and of course, the conservation signal as well, those quartiles. Going through, all of them, probably the most helpful one, I would say, is similar number of water accounts. We know that system size plays a huge role in utilities and how they're able to leverage the expensive costs of running a water and wastewater system over the number of customers. So that similar number of water accounts is a really useful one to use to make sure you're comparing against a utility that is the same size as you. My Watershed is another option. This is again from the U.S. Geological Survey, and you can see it's kind of honed in there, and there's only 12 rate structures compared in this case, but still enough to make a comparison. Same ownership type is about whether it's a municipality, an authority, other type of utility, because that does affect whether you can raise rates easily, whether there's more regulations, all kinds of things. We also have the same water planning region. Like we mentioned previously, there are 5 in Florida, and in this one we have 53 rate structures compared. So it's pretty large, and that can be useful as well for planning and making sure you're making comparisons within an area that makes sense. We also include the same rate structure type, similar customer income. So again, that's based on the MHI from the census data This one is for communities with an MHI between 30,000 and 35,000, which is below the state MHI. So it's, having a little more lower income than the rest of the state. And then we also have my congressional district and some geographical ones, 25 miles and 15 miles. So there's lots of options here to make comparisons based on different factors rather than just who's around, who's nearby. We want to make comparisons that actually, make sense. So we've seen how to, see about raising rates. We've seen the comparison groups, the consumption slider here, which again shows gallons and cubic feet, selecting different services. And I want to mention here this water and sewer bill, whatever you choose, it's going to be this amount for both of them. So this is 9,500 gallons of water and 9,500 gallons of sewer. It's not, split in half there. So another useful tool on here is in the upper right, we have edit data or add utility. And this is really useful either if you were not included in the survey and you still want to see how you compare against other utilities and yourself with those benchmarks. If you want to kind of play around with raising or lowering your rates, or if you have updated data and you want to plug that in and see how you're comparing now, either with the financial information or the rates information, or even your community's demographic information. So you can use one of these existing example cases for demonstration. You can either create a new utility, or let's say if you are Aloha Gardens and you wanted to see about raising or lowering rates or entering this information, you can create a clone here. So this is what that looks like. You want to select the consumption amount that you're looking for. So 4,000 is the default amount for the state because that's thought to be kind of an average amount for the typical household to use in a month. So then you can, change the bill amounts here. Right now we have water at 28, sewer at 52, and you can raise and lower these, as much as you want, or, just select for one of the services. If you want to see what would look like if median household income went down, what if the area, took a really hard hit? And you can also enter financial information here if you didn't have it before, or if it's been updated. And that, goes by tens of thousands. You can enter expenses here, including depreciation. Again, that's important. And add in the year. So save that. And here now is this copy of Aloha Gardens that looks, totally different. It's comparing to all utilities in the survey. It's, using that financial information that we input here with the cost recovery. It's showing some affordability concerns because we dropped the median household income way down, and showing, a stronger conservation signal than it had before with the increased rate price. So again, this is useful if you're not in the survey, if you want to update your information, or just kind of play around and see, what would happen based on different circumstances. Okay, let me go back to the presentation here. So I also want to mention, this is hopefully an informational tool for you, but when you might want to use it. A great way is as part of your annual rate review. Of course, seeing how you're doing financially, seeing how you're doing compared to other people, other utilities in your peer group. It's also useful when you're presenting to boards or other decision makers. We've gotten a lot of feedback from different utilities throughout the states that we've worked in. They've shown us presentations where they have screenshots of the